Welcome back to Who Wears Your Pants. This is my fucking show. Except for tonight we have a guest. His name is Danny, also known as Donny O'Malley. Mm-hmm. And he is a writer, a filmmaker, an entrepreneur, a comedian, a grandma's boy, a mama's boy, a fashionista, fashion icon.
Fashion icon.
A lover. My current sex slave. And he has a matching tattoo with my father, so he's helping me work through my daddy issues. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And today we are going to be talking all about how to be who you want to be.
I love this topic.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here. I've been hearing about this podcast forever. So now that I'm finally here, I'm like, this is the home spot.
You're like, I can leave now. We're good.
No, we got a lot to talk about.
Yes. Grab that mic and let's roll.
Yes, you're going to have to shut me up. We already talked about how you're going to tell me to shut up when I'm going too long.
And I guess we can preface this by saying, and maybe you can give your backstory a little bit, but you went to college, got a degree in kinesiology, went into the military, got out. You were a personal trainer for a while, and then set out on this mission to create a nonprofit and become a writer and a filmmaker and create your own company, all of those sorts of things. So what led you to that point?
Okay. Just to clarify one tiny little
did I totally mess up your life story?
I was a personal trainer in between college and Marine Corps.
Okay.
After Marine Corps, went full send into the whole writing gig.
Okay.
And then it was wrote a book, and it was book, started a nonprofit, and then a year later came up with the idea for a television network for the military community, and then executed on that idea with a Kickstarter campaign 3-4 months after I came up with the idea. And then I have been doing that, growing that company ever since. The mission that I have been really focused on in the last 5 years has been to improve mental health and prevent suicide in the veteran community. And the way in which I have gone about achieving that mission has been through entertainment, using entertainment as a means to bring people together and build community. So that's the mission that I've been on. It's one of many missions that I have had in my life and will have. But what started it was my buddy killing himself. And it was really in a moment of mourning, I was at the wake, and his mother was crying over his casket. Is this a little heavier than we were going to get?
Is it? Yeah.
Don't worry. I can laugh about it.
Was it an open casket or a closed casket?
It was an open casket.
Okay. I've only been, not to derail your story, I've only been to one, and it was my grandmother, and it really freaked me out.
But
I was also like oddly very obsessed with looking at her. I was like, is this sad or am I curious? Like I've never, anyway, continue. So this mother's crying over over her dead son's body. This is not heavy at all. Please continue.
Not at all. And so as I'm sitting there at the wake and I'm crying to myself in my seat, and I think in that moment, I was trying to tell myself something to make me feel better in the moment. And what I told myself was, as I'm listening to her wailing, because it was fucking miserable, hearing her arms out, why?
Oh my gosh.
Oh man. And a bunch of Marines, bunch of combat veterans in this room, all sitting in their chairs, just like, we were all a mess. And all of us, for the most part, a lot of us were in Wounded Warrior Battalion together. So in that moment, I'm just like, I got to do something. It's just like the way I was trying to process my mourning, I guess, was I got to take an action. And I'm like, okay, well, his mother's asking why. Maybe I can give her a reason why. Maybe I could tell her that her son died so that others could live. And I told myself that my thoughts went like that fast. And I kind of felt better immediately. And then I actually acted on it, which in that moment, I don't know how committed I was, but I've been committed for 5 years.
Have you told his mother this?
No. And I was just asked
You
that
haven't?
recently. No, I'm too scared.
Why? Think about how much joy that would bring that woman, knowing that obviously she's so upset about her son's actions and finally being able to say, I started this because of your son.
Yeah, that is, and you would think that the optimist in me would think that that would be her response. And so that would make me inclined to actually do that.
Yeah.
But a part of me is worried that she wouldn't respond that way, that she'd respond in a way that was, there's so many negative emotions involved in losing a child that, what if she had she hadn't mourned her son in a while, and the pain of her child's death has finally left her for a minute, and then I give her a phone call and say, hey, remember your dead son? Well, just wanted you to know, and then start talking about me. I've got a lot of doubt and insecurity about reaching out to this woman, so I don't know.
What if you wrote a letter and on the cover you said, in a moment when you're thinking about your son, open this?
I'm not going to commit to that right now, but it's not that bad an idea.
Okay, so this happens and that sends you on this journey.
That sent me on a journey, yeah.
Create what you've created to this point.
Yeah. Initially, what it did was it led me to retool my book, which at the time was a pure comedy about my last combat operation in the Marine Corps. And so there's a lot of fun stuff, and there's some really good action. It's just a real fun read. And I knew that combat veterans, at least Marine infantry, were going to read it. And then after my buddy kills himself, and now I started researching suicide because it was the second person that I knew. I just wasn't really friends with the other guy. He was a friend of a friend. So now this one hit me hard. I'm doing research and I'm learning about what a big deal veteran suicide is. I'm like, holy shit, I didn't know this. I've been focused on, KIAs, like killed in action, like that kind of death. Suicide it never even crossed my mind. And so then I thought, oh wow, I should use my book, the attention that I'm going to get with it, as an opportunity to bring awareness to veteran suicide. And so I had a message about awareness, but then also the focus was on prevention at the end of the book. And I had a specific plan laid out to prevent suicide. Because through my research, I saw these nonprofits that are raising awareness. And I'm just like, okay, as I'm scrolling through nonprofits, I'm like, which one of you are actually doing something to prevent? Yeah. I couldn't really find it.
It's like the Me Too movement, and you're like, cool.
Yeah.
Congratulations, everybody.
It's like, can we see a specific plan for how we're going to reduce suicide or reduce sexual assault? And I wasn't seeing it. So I'm like, okay, well, let me start thinking about how. And I kind of had a thesis on how to prevent suicide. And I had no idea where it was going to go. I'm just like, this is what I think could prevent suicide. And then a month after the book released, which back then I didn't have any social media following. Nobody knew who I was.
Wait, let me ask a quick question.
Yes.
So you're talking about all of these tangible things, actions that you took, right?
Yes.
Like doing this and starting this and writing this. What was the emotional part of it for you?
After that cry during the wake, there really wasn't any after that. It was just all action. Which I think that's how I lived my life, I think, for the most part, up until the last couple of years, probably. But I would I would be overwhelmed with emotion, overcome with emotion over something, and that emotion would lead me to take an action. And one of those instances, I don't know if I told you this, but when I watched a documentary on the Ironman triathlon, midday on a Tuesday or Wednesday in between clients when I was a personal trainer, and I cried intensely.
I always cry during those.
Yeah.
But
it was because this guy, he I forget what disease he got. It might have been multiple sclerosis, something. His body was degenerating. The doctor said, you're not going to walk in a year or two, and then a year after that, you're going to be dead. So he was like, oh, wow, I need to take advantage, use my body while I got it. And then he trained for the Ironman. He did it. And by the time the documentary aired, at the very end of the documentary, when it tells his story, it says he died right before this thing aired. And and so I was like, I'm going to do an Ironman. And it was that simple. And then I saw a documentary, Riding Giants on surfing. And after I got done watching that, I had some tears it was between Laird Hamilton and his father. That relationship brought tears in my eyes because I'm so close to my father. And then I was like, I have to learn how to surf. And then I did. So there's probably a handful of other moments when I was overcome with emotion that led me to say, I'm going to take this action. And then I did. Whoa. This was one of those instances. And then after that, there was no emotion. There was just, it's like, okay, what do I need to do? I'm either just going to take an action or I'm making a plan and then constantly redesigning the plan and then taking the actions necessary.
I feel like a lot of people have those thoughts. Like they watch that documentary and they're like, oh my God, I would love to do that. But then they don't ever do anything about it. So why do you think you actually do?
Because I feel immense shame when I let myself down. And if I tell myself that I need to do something or that I should do something, if I know something is going to make me happy or it's going to make me proud of myself, then if I don't do it, I feel terrible shame. And I don't like living with that shame. So I do what I need to do to not feel the shame and to feel proud of myself. I love being I try to keep myself open to being inspired as much as possible. Like I look around me, even just looking in the studio, and I'm like, what a freaking cool, beautiful studio. Like this is inspiring. And I try to feel that everywhere. And then that inspiration is like, well, like if I can do that thing that inspires me, then I'm going to do it. Right?
People always, I heard this recently, is that they say that everyone thinks love is the most powerful emotion and the most moving, but they've actually done studies that show that awe is. Like you remember things that put you in a state of awe.
Yeah.
Yeah, which, I mean, another word I suppose would be like you're experiencing something that's incredibly inspiring. So like going to see live music puts you in a state of awe, or seeing someone accomplish something puts you in that state, and it's more powerful and memorable than love.
Wow, I have never read that, but that makes total sense to my own life. Because I remember being a kid watching Vietnam War movies and documentaries and watching these helicopters that said U.S. Marines on the side. They were CH-46s and CH-53s, and they're flying into a hot LZ, into tall elephant grass. And Marines are getting out of the birds under fire and then getting out and assaulting the enemy. And I remember being a little kid and like, I have to do that. And that was awe.
Yeah.
That was awe when I saw the triathlon, awe when I saw the other thing. And wow, that's really, really cool. That's good to know. I'm gonna play with that thought because I think that speaks to me.
Back to being about who we want to be. Pulling ourselves back in here. Yes. Okay, so we talked about this a little bit in the car on the way over here, but how are you a different person now than you were 5 years ago? So on your journey to become who you want to be, how have you changed? And why? Like what contributed to that?
Respect women a little more. And how did that come to be? I left the Marine Corps. That's how. No, that's one of the things. So we're talking just different from 5 years ago?
Or yeah, let's say 5 years ago, you would have been 22.
22, yeah.
Like
5 years ago. Yeah, that was when I started the nonprofit, actually, in 2015.
So it was in that moment.
Yeah. How am I different? I am significantly more disciplined, more organized, more well-planned and regimented. I lie significantly less to never. Right? Like even little things like why I'm late, you know? Like 5 years ago, I would have made up some bullshit about why I'm late. Now I won't. Now I'm significantly less late, maybe more punctual than I was 5 years ago. Yeah, with that look in your face, let me tell you, that means I was bad 5 years ago. And, I would, if I am late now, which is not as frequent, then I'm just going to say, my bad, or fuck, left late, or something, but I won't lie about why I'm late. Even this tiny.
Why do you think that is? Is it that you no longer, like, why do you think that that's changed for you? Are you worried less about what other people will think, or?
There might be some of that in it. I think it's more for me, just wasn't sitting right on my soul. Like every tiny little lie about why I'm late just didn't make me feel good about myself. I wasn't proud of that. I was ashamed. So much
shame.
Shame. I started to shame. I love shame. I think it's such a great thing.
I know you've never watched Game of Thrones, but there's this epic scene in it where one of the queen is walking through the city naked, and everyone in the city is chanting shame at her. I don't know if you guys have seen that.
Huh.
Anyway, it's a powerful scene.
Interesting. Okay.
So that's led you there.
Okay. So that is, those are a couple of the ways in which I am different from 5 years ago. So more well planned. I am way more, I'm way more careful with my time. I protect my time and respect my time more. And that also falls into planning out my days and being very disciplined about what I'm doing on any given hour. Because it's like, well, I only have so many waking hours in the day. How do I maximize the hours that I'm awake in the pursuit of my goals and my happiness? And then so I define what my happiness is, what I need to be happy, and then what my goals are. And there's professional goals, personal goals, athletic goals, and I don't know if that's it. But when I say personal, I include goals of spending more time with family and improving relationships with the people around me. So it's like, who are the most important people in my life? And who do I enjoy spending the most time with, right? Like I've got tons and tons of friends going back to high school, middle school. And
somebody was popular.
Well, I was bullied in high school, but maybe post high school. And so I lost my train of thought.
If I was a therapist, I'd be like, hold on. Let's circle back to that.
Which one?
When you're like, well, I was bullied in high school.
Oh, yeah. I thought we were going to get there at some point in this thing. But where was I going with this? Oh, so I have lots and lots of friends, incredibly fortunate. Now, some of those friends, maybe a lot of them, from 20 years of friendships, are not that healthy. Like, they're decent people, but the time that I spend with them it doesn't feel as valuable or as meaningful. And maybe it's because that friend hasn't grown in a direction that I've grown in. They haven't grown in a direction that I respect. And so if I can't respect what they're doing with their life, then it's like, I don't want to spend that much time with them. Yeah. And so there's a lot of people that I'm just like, yeah, if I see them at a reunion, I've got my fraternity reunions and bachelor parties and weddings and all that stuff. I see them there, I'm going to have an amazing time with these guys because I have so much fun with my friends. It's ridiculous. But that's probably where it's going to stop. And so I'm much more picky about who I spend time with. And there's a lot involved in who I choose to spend time with. But
yeah.
You're going to say something.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was going to say that because we're talking about being who you want to be, I think that when you want to change who that is, you have to be around different people. Mm-hmm. And like I experienced something very powerful in that, and that it was the hardest part for me was walking away from all of these people. And I mean, I left so many of my friends. I don't even think like the brevity of it at this point, looking back, I'm like, wow. But then you end up opening space to find new people that, and it's not, this is a thing that I kind of had grappled with for a while. It's not that they're bad people. It's just that they're living a life that's different than how you want to live. Mm-hmm. But you have to go through that.
Yeah. I mean, some of them are shitty people.
Yeah. I mean, some people morally.
Yeah.
But
some of them are fucking dirtbags.
Yeah. I'm talking about like the mean average of the people.
Oh yes, the average of the people.
Yeah, but then what happens is you end up spending a shit ton of time alone with yourself. And like as I was telling you about on the way over here listening to Matthew McConaughey be interviewed, he was talking about how he goes on, I think he calls them walkabouts, and he leaves for like 20 days and he goes off completely alone. And he says the first 12 days are horrible. He's like, I'm sitting there stuck in my thoughts and I'm upset about what's going on and what's working through my mind. And then once I get over that hump of 12 days and I'm done listening to myself, he didn't say this, but like bitch and moan, basically. He's like, then it's the most glorious time.
Wow, what an experience.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah.
We're both probably thinking, I need to do that.
I'm like, I need to leave now. But that's one of the things that I think is, I found that fascinating. But then you end up spending a bunch of time alone, which a lot of people do not want to do, but you have to. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So why do you think they don't like spending time alone?
I think that when you're alone, you're forced to face who you are. And if you don't like that person, then you're kind of SOL.
Shame. When they are alone with their thoughts and they think about their own actions, they think about the ways that they let themselves down or they let other people down or the ways they treat people or the lies that they're telling people, when they have the time to actually think about that and acknowledge it, they're like, no. And they go turn the radio on. Yeah. Fuck that. I don't want to think of that shit. Think of this song. I'm going to get the TV on, the news on, check social media. Yeah. It's just like, it's creating noise to drown out the sounds of your own thoughts. And for many people, and I used to use this verbiage talking to veterans, as the sound of your demons.
Oh yeah. My dad calls them the skeletons in your closet.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's just like, let's be specific. What are your demons? It's the memories of the shitty things you've done or the shitty things that have happened to you.
Who wants to live in that? And I understand that, but you can't get past it if you don't get over it.
Yeah. You have to like process it in a deep, deep way. And for me personally, I'll play it over and over and over again in my head. And each time I do it, I'll try to see something new, right? Because just playing the memory on loop isn't good. Playing it as if you're an outside observer watching a movie and looking for something else in the frame. Or maybe it's not in the frame. Maybe it's in your own head, like, what was I thinking moments before that memory? What was I thinking during the memory or after the memory? And it's like, what action could I have taken before or after that, that I wish that I took? And so when I have thought about those things, I can end up learning something from the experience. And then once I've learned something from it, now it's like, oh. And now there's a little minute positive association with that experience, because I'm just like, I thought about it enough times and I'm like, oh. And so now that experience that was once just, that experience at one point made me go, like if you saw me sitting and thinking by myself in a room, my face would have been like this. But after I have the aha moment, then it's like, oh.
But you can't have that if you don't actually allow yourself to live in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's interesting because you were talking about how people drown it out by using like social media or the TV or
alcohol,
whatever
drugs,
have you.
sex,
yeah. And
running.
It's interesting because there's this, everyone says that those are distractions, but the distractions that you create in your life are oftentimes linked to an emotion. So like if you stop and think to yourself, why am I allowing this distraction into my life? It's because you're using it as a means to cover up something that you're feeling. So like if you're outside and you're sitting there waiting to meet up with a friend and suddenly you feel uncomfortable, right? So you pull out your phone. Or like you're working and you're anxious or you're stressed or you're bored, so you turn to something else, right?
Yep.
So it's all like linked to some kind of emotion. A lot of people don't recognize that, and then they just blame technology or blame alcohol or whatever have you, when it's really the emotion that they're avoiding.
Yeah.
That is to blame.
Yeah. So maybe for social media, it's like you don't feel valuable or you don't feel attractive, right? Just naturally, oh my God, I love this. I want to parody the hell out of this. I'm going to with one of my characters. But like, it's men and women. But a lot of people, okay, let me step back. I have met a few people who in real life, I personally wouldn't find them that attractive. But you go and look at their social media and they're freaking beautiful. And they got tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers. And so it's like, what's going on there? And then you look at that person and how much time they spend on social media. And it's like, at least a third of their waking hours are spent on social media. So it's like they're living in a world that isn't real.
And this is coming from someone who you've made a lot of your success through social media.
All the marketing of my company is social media. All of it.
Okay, but go on. So
I'm speaking more to
I know who you're talking to.
Models, fitness community, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's a dangerous thing. And there were actually predictions about this. I think the book 1984 did it. The movie Gattaca did it. There's some other movie where it's like, it was predicted decades ago that there is a danger of the digital space, cyberspace, the digital realm, especially virtual reality. There's this danger that people are going, the movie Judge Dredd is a great example, where the digital reality or the virtual reality is more exciting and intriguing than actual reality. The Matrix did it too.
Yeah. Ready Player One does it.
Okay. Her. Yeah. I think you might have told me about her. I need to watch those too. But so that's a scary thought, right? Especially for a child who spends a third of their day on social media and say 75% of their communication with other human beings happens via text. That's a scary thing.
Well, I know you haven't watched The Social Dilemma, but that documentary is, they talk about how children are experiencing major anxiety and depression, and it's like directly linked to the fact that they're exposed to these social media accounts. It's like, imagine being in middle school and you're like trying to figure out who you are in the real world. Then on top of that, now you got to throw on figuring out who you are online. You're 12 years old. And so all of these, like, both I think it's more girls, but girls and guys, like boys and girls, because they're really young, you know, they're experiencing massive depression, and, you know, suicide is increasing in children. It's really, really sad.
Yeah. Suicidal ideations in the Marine Corps training pipeline are up exponentially. And it's like, what happened? And it's like, oh, here's what happened. Is these fucking kids have never had to deal with face-to-face confrontation. Mm-hmm. And then they get a drill instructor screaming in their face. Then they get 4 of them screaming in their face. And they just overcome with it because they haven't had to deal with that in real life yet.
Yeah.
Because every time face-to-face confrontation might have happened, they have had the ability to escape into their phone. Mm-hmm. Whereas for probably the both of us, at least speaking specifically to myself, I had unbelievable social anxiety. Like my hands would shake and my voice would crack, and I would be overcome with fear to the point that I couldn't behave normally.
Yeah.
And that happened all the time. When the teacher would say, okay, everybody, partner up. And then once you have your partners, one of you two come up to the front and pick up this worksheet. As soon as the teacher said partner up, I would start shaking. Because that meant I would have to ask the person to the right or left of me, hey, do you want to be my partner? And they might say no.
Yeah.
So I was always the kid in class. This is into high school. The kid in class who, when they said partner up, I wouldn't go to partner with anyone. And then the teacher would say, okay, does anyone not have a partner? And I wouldn't raise my hand because I was ashamed. And I didn't want the whole class to know that I didn't have a partner.
Danny a hug.
I know. I need it. And then I would walk up to the teacher and say, can I have a worksheet, please? Well, what happened when you raise your hand? I don't know. Well, who's your partner? I don't have one. Well, I asked.
Yeah.
Raise your hand for your partner. I was like, I know, but can I have a worksheet? Right? Like, that was me.
Yeah.
Every class. That anxiety. It had the potential to ruin me. Mm-hmm. There was a handful of times I stood in front of the class and I froze.
Wow.
The teacher would have to save me.
Yeah.
So I felt that for years.
I don't think I definitely didn't feel that.
And because I got that out of my system young, mm-hmm. now it's like I know how to deal with that fear.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, obviously, you're in front of a camera all the time now and speaking in front of large groups of people and things like that. Do you still experience that? And then I guess answer that first.
No.
So how did you get out of it?
I did it thousands of times.
Yeah.
And I have been in so many situations when I've been standing in front of a crowd, feeling those nerves and having to deal with it. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's just like anything else, the 10,000 hours thing. Like, you do it enough times, your brain figures out how to get out on that stage in front of this crowd and to be able to perform. And that's what it is. When you're in front of a crowd, you're putting on a performance. Mm-hmm. And so I've just gotten better at it. Doing stand-up was the ultimate test. Like having a show that people are paying money to come see, and then coming out onto a stage mm-hmm. in front of a large crowd and having to go through an hour-long routine. That experience, it's like after that, everything's easy.
Yeah.
Everything's easy.
I think that when you're trying to figure out who you want to be, it's as important to know what you don't like as it is to know what you do like. And I think a lot of the times people will look at something like, let's say they go out and they're like, I think that maybe I want to play the guitar. They start taking lessons, they end up hating it. And then because they didn't like it, they're like, well, screw that. I guess I'm just going to go back to being me. And that was a complete waste of my time and a failure. But it's like, no, that actually got you closer to figuring out what you do like, because now you know that you don't want to play the guitar.
Okay. Let me think.
Unless you just always knew everything.
No. My life is a series of trial and error. And I think that I've taken so many actions and taken so many risks and made so many mistakes that I was able to learn a ton about myself, what I like, what I don't like, what I want to do, what I don't want to do. The things that I have done that have scared me. And this goes back to something that I thought your initial question was going to lead to this. But
you're like, so I'm just going to ask myself the question that I wanted you to
ask
me.
I'm just going to throw it out there anyways. I'm just going to throw it out there because I think you'll dig it. And I don't know if we've talked about this before, but part of what led me to become the person that I am now, which I think this was the intent of your initial question, but then it kind of, who I am now turned into this guy running a company, which I want to look at that differently.
Yeah, because I was thinking more of it in terms of, well, this is actually an interesting point. So not in terms of like how you label yourself, like what you would write on a name tag. It's like, who are you?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So then, yes, I will go back to your initial question and answer it better. So I used to be a very shy, insecure, timid, bullied kid. And I was afraid of everything. I was afraid of any type of social interaction, whether it was someone in class, a girl, or another guy.
You're so scary.
Yeah. So I would have been scared to death of you when I was younger. Because you have that.
You're not anymore. What is this?
I know what a sweetheart you are. So no, I can't be. But so very shy, insecure, timid, bullied. And I didn't like it. And I lived every day feeling a sense of shame because I was not happy with who I was. I wanted to be the class clown. I wanted to be the captain of the team. I wanted to be a leader, to stand. I wanted a group of people to follow me. I wanted that, but all of that was a fucking fairy tale because I was that kid on the football team who never stepped foot on the field, never even touched the field until the very last game of the season. In the last, 5-10 plays of the game.
They're like, all right, throw them in.
Yeah, exactly. Coach Brown, I'll never forget because I hadn't played the whole fucking season. So I'm just like, okay, well, this is fun. And I was in that moment, I remember during the game, I was like, okay, this is my last football game. But then I remember seeing him do that. I just happened to be looking left, and I see him going, and he's looking for the scrubs. He's looking for the guys who've never played. And he was like,
what's their names again?
Bar, get in there, replace. I don't remember who told me to replace. And I was like, I wasn't planning on playing today.
I don't even have a helmet.
Yeah. Shit, my shoes tied. Thank God it was defense. It was offense. I would have blown it. And so I got in there in the game, and it was a playoff game, so there's a big crowd. And it was incredible. Coming in underneath the lights and getting into the huddle on defense. And whoever was the captain of defense, he says, this is our play, our defensive play, whatever. And then I'm like, okay, I've gotten my spot, lining up. I think I was playing defensive end. And then, the level of intensity that existed right there on the defensive line, looking at these, and the O linemen on the other team were giant. I was not that big. I was still a pretty skinny kid. I was a very skinny kid. The only reason I was on defensive line was because I wasn't athletic enough to do anything else. I was really clumsy and slow. And so I didn't have the footwork to be like a cornerback or safety. It wasn't big enough and strong enough to be linebacker. So it's like, all right, this guy can hold pads at D end. And that was me. So now in the game, it's so intense and these big linemen. It was really, really scary. And then once the guys hiked the ball, I kind of held my own, but being, as in like, I didn't get flat-backed by the O-lineman.
You didn't end up in the ER is what you're saying.
Yeah, I didn't end up on my back. And I didn't get a sack. I don't even think I got a tackle, but that experience, and hearing the crowd and everything, I was like, I have to experience this again. And I made a decision that night. I said, I'm going to stay JV, right? Because I didn't play football until my sophomore year, so I was on JV team. And our team, we had a lot of great players. And I'm like, no, I'm going to stay JV. I'm not going up to varsity. And I know that all the guys in my grade are going to shame me. They're all going to shit on me and talk trash like they do all the kids that stay JV. But I'm like, I don't care. I need to do this for me because I need to have this experience again. And then I set a goal for myself, and I said, I'm going to start both ways. I'm going to start on offense, I'm going to start on defense, and I'm going to be on all the special teams, and I'm going to be the long snapper.
Where is this football story going?
Thank you. At this time in my life, I had been so incredibly fearful of all the things. And it was right around this time that I had gotten to the point where I considered suicide. It was the only time I've ever considered suicide. And it was because I was just miserable every single day. Like, going to every part of the day was miserable. And I spent a lot of time trying to fit in with this group of cool kids and just getting bullied and shamed by them. And then I would spend the rest of my time walking around by myself, trying to make it pretend like I wasn't a loner, because I didn't want to just go sit and eat by myself, because then everyone would know I was a loner. But there was too much shame in everyone knowing I was a loner, so I would just walk around. And sometimes I would go and sit by myself in a corner of the school. And there was, on this one particular day, I was walking up to the group of guys to go hang out with them, and I was always really nervous because some days they would treat me like shit. Some days they would let me just kind of stand in the circle. You know, there's always like circles in high school. And so as I'm walking up to the circle, these two guys, they turn and they look at me, they see me coming, they're like, and I see them talk to each other, and they're like, and they closed the gap between each other as if to be like, don't let this fucking guy in. And then I was like, it felt like I was kicked in the chest. And like it stung, but I also didn't have any air. And I walked into a corner and I cried. And I think that was a day that I considered suicide. But in that moment, as I'm considering suicide, and it was a lot of my thoughts occur when I'm laying in my bed, looking in the ceiling in the dark before sleep. And I was like, how fucking dare you consider suicide when your parents have designed their entire life to give you a good life? And they have. They've given you a good life. They've given you an incredible life. And you're going to consider taking it? And then guess what I felt? Shame. So I felt immense shame for even considering suicide. And I'm like, you fucking disgusting little brat. And then I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to kill myself, but I can't keep living like this. Mm-hmm. This is not a good way to live. And the way I was living was in constant fear. Fear of what other people think, fear of judgment, fear of being bullied, fear of being rejected. And I was like, this fear has caused me to do nothing and to not do any of the things that I really want to do. So I made a decision. If I fear it, I must do it. And so that began a life of throwing myself into the fire of my fear, throwing myself into the deep end of the pool of dreams. Mm-hmm. And that's where this is finally linking back up with what we were talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. It's what led me to be the person that I am now. It was that. It was the experience of feeling so shitty about myself, from a combination of being overcome by fear and shame, and a combination of being treated like shit by other people, and having this immense desire to be accepted. And that experience then led me to rock bottom, to then say, no, this is how I must live. I must face my fears. And I knew that facing my fear would make me proud of myself in any capacity. So I started doing it. And when the teacher asked for volunteers, I would always raise my hand. And every time I heard the teacher ask for volunteers, I would feel my heart. The same experience that I get jumping out of an airplane or I got in combat of just whoosh, whoosh, just like this powerful thumping where I can hear it and almost the sound gets weird. I got that every time that I heard a teacher ask for a fucking volunteer. And that was my cue to raise my hand. The fear was my cue to action. And that then became like the mantra of my life. If I fear it, I must do it. And that came into getting in front of the class and making people laugh. That came into talking to girls. And then the biggest thing was confrontation with other guys and fighting and standing up for myself.
Well, at what point do you think that you will have, is there like something in your mind where you're like, once I've reached this, then the high school version of myself will be okay?
You mean, do I think of that now? Is that the question?
Yeah. Like you set out on this journey because of that.
Yeah.
That version of you. Mm-hmm. Is there ever a point where you're like, okay, I've made that part of myself okay and happy and at peace? And
yeah, I'm there. I wanted to be like Terry Murphy. Terry Murphy. He was a senior when I was a freshman, I think.
I was like, who's that? Wait, is that like a filmmaker?
Yeah, it's a great name, right? It's an amazing name. This guy, he was like 6'2", 6'3", big, buff, really handsome fella, captain of the football team, crushed people on the field, and he was the biggest brawler in the school and one of the biggest brawlers in the town. So like the toughest guys at my school would fight the toughest guys at Poway and in Mount Carmel, Escondido.
You wanted to be the biggest fighter.
I wanted to be like Terry Murphy.
Okay.
And being a big fighter was a part of that. Mm. But what I loved the most about Terry Murphy was that he was like the baddest motherfucker in the school. But he was one of the nicest, most loving, fun, outgoing, loud, funny guys you'd ever met. He was just larger than life. He was a fucking superhero to me. And he would, he'd be the guy yelling across the lunch area or the snack area, making jokes at people. And, he could go anywhere and put his arm around anyone and they would be grateful that Terry Murphy was talking to them.
Yeah.
Because it's Terry Murphy. And like people weren't too afraid of him because everyone knew better than to challenge him, right? Because he was ready to throw hands and he'll beat the fuck out of anybody. And all the girls loved him. The guys wanted to be like him and be friends with him. And I was like, oh my God, I want to be like this guy.
Have you ever told him that?
No.
You should write him a letter too when you write that.
Yeah, you're right. I gotta look him up. But so I had a clear vision of who I wanted to be, and I became that. And so that's part of why I'm such a happy person now, is because like I had a vision of just the way I want to interact with other people and the reputation that I want for myself, and I achieved it. At least in my head, I have. And that's enough.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, that's enough for my own happiness. And if I'm not achieving it, other people will tell me, and I can unfuck myself. But yeah, Terry Murphy. That was the vision.
Terry Murphy.
Good old Terry Murphy.
I want to see a photo of him.
Yeah, I wonder what he looks like now.
He's probably 100 pounds overweight.
I know.
As our most high school football stars, let's be real.
Know.
That was probably the peak of his life.
But he wasn't an asshole, right?
So maybe not.
So I have to believe it wasn't.
Yeah.
I could see this guy starting a company in the community.
So if, let's say that someone is like, I want to become their version of Terry Murphy, what would you tell them to do? Break
down, what is that person like? What specifically about them, about their behavior, do you want to emulate? So watch them interact. When they stand in front of a class and talk, how do they do it? What is their composure? What is their charisma like and their charm? Can they maintain charm in front of a group? A lot of people who can be charming one-on-one, but you put it in front of a group, they lose the charm, right? So
why do you think that is?
Nerves. Right? So you have to be very specific. If there's somebody that you wish to emulate, what about them do you wish to emulate? What specific behaviors? Look at the way they treat the waiter, the way they treat their mom, their dad, their friends. What do they actually do with their life? How much time do they waste? How productive are they? Are they making an impact on the world? How do they compose themselves in fearful situations? Like, study that shit. And then think, ooh, I like that. I like that. I like that. I don't really like that, but I like that and that and that. And so that's what I got to do. You just have to build the vision of who you want to be, and you just have to be specific. I think a lot of people, they just don't look deep enough and aren't specific enough.
Yeah.
They're just like, ooh, I love Reese Witherspoon. Okay, well,
what about her?
What about Reese Witherspoon that you love? Oh, she's just so pretty, and she's just a great actress, and she's so funny. And then, you ask a couple questions and you come to find out they don't know who the fuck Reese Witherspoon is. Yeah. They just saw she's just a movie star that they think is pretty. And they saw some pictures in a model mag, and that's why they like Reese Witherspoon.
So who do you want to be now? Who's your next Terry Murphy? Who's on the horizon for you?
I'm going to say Adam Sandler and Tyler Perry.
Okay.
Adam Sandler and Tyler Perry. Yeah.
Do you have any questions for me? Or is there anything else you'd like to share?
Yeah, I want to know the same things from you, because I don't even know if we've...
You're like, episode 2 is in reverse.
Yes. But we've talked about a lot of this stuff, and I think maybe piecemealed, but for yourself, do you have a vision of who you want to be?
Yes.
What is it?
Like, what are the attributes?
Sure.
Well, as you were talking about people that, like how you're saying, like, you want to emulate, there are people that I look at and I think, wow, that person is like these certain things. But it's not just like, I don't have one person that I want to be like, if that makes sense. Like, I think that when it comes to characteristics that I want to embody more of or continue to embody, it's like a woman who is both strong and sweet, because I think that I want to be both of those things. I don't want to be just one. Someone who's ambitious and also really fun. I think that that's both of those are things that I care a lot about.
Yeah.
Like, I like to pursue things, but I also like to be really playful and childish in a sense.
Yes. How do you define strength?
I think that strength is, in the way that I see it, it's being boldly who you are. And when I envision it, it's like walking into a room without being afraid to be like, this is me. And that's part of strength. And I think also part of that comes with standing up for yourself and standing up for other people.
And how close are you to your vision?
Some days better than others. I think it's like an ebb and a flow. I have days where I feel like very connected to who I want to be. And then I have days where I'm like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
But what I've been starting to do is for whichever day that I am living in, I notice, okay, well, why was today why did I not feel that way today? What was I doing? Or the other way around. Like, you talk about going to bed at night, loving who you are. And for me, I think it's like the opposite. It's like, do I wake up being like, yes, this is my life. This is who I am. And then I think about, okay, well, why did I wake up having that thought? And it's like, oh, it's because I get to do this, this, and this. And then so I've started to recognize that and then try and do more of those things and less of the things that take me to this place where I don't feel like I'm becoming the person that I want to be.
And so in the morning, you're just assessing how stoked you are for the day. Nice. Now, is that a function of Is that a function of like you've got a plan for that day and there are things on your calendar that you're excited to do?
Usually, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what about at the end of the day, taking note of, difficult conversations that you had that day, instances when you should have stood up for yourself but didn't, instances when you were not the best version of yourself or you kind of held yourself back. How aware are you of those things throughout the day? How often do you try to stay cognizant of those?
Constantly. Yeah.
All the fucking time.
My brain doesn't shut up.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you have a really good coach. Yourself.
Oh yeah, me.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying you.
No, yourself. You're constantly coaching yourself.
Yeah.
Did you do this well? Could you have done this better?
For me, it's kind of like I walk away from a situation and I'm like, oh, fuck. Like it happens afterwards. But it's interesting because this is something that has happened from acting, is that I've begun to notice, I think I was telling you about this before, but like my body responds before my mind does. And I'm starting to get faster at putting the two together. Because I'll feel like my body react.
Like slouching?
Exactly. Like I knew you were going to say that, but I'm like, but it's such a perfect example. It's like, I will feel my body close, like my body will start to close off.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, Kirsten, you have to like be cognizant that that's happening. And then immediately course correct myself to go the other direction. And then it's like, okay, later on, I'll think, well, why did that start happening to me?
When you notice that you get to hear, it's like, wait a second, why am I here?
Yeah.
Oh, it's because of this thing that someone said, or this thing that I didn't do, or the way that I wish I responded that I didn't. And you're like, oh, God damn it.
I think it's all about awareness. But it's funny because as you were talking about yourself, I had this note down that I wrote earlier. At the end of the day, figuratively or literally, right? I guess, it all comes down to accepting the challenge that's in front of you in order to be who you want to be. And that's exactly what you were describing. So I thought it was interesting.
If I fear it, I must do it.
Facing your fear and then seeing that challenge and saying, I'm going to do it, and that's how you become who you want to be.
Because you know that if you don't do it, you're going to resent yourself. You're going to feel shame. And you cannot love yourself if you're constantly letting yourself down. You can't do it.
Yeah. Okay, so my final question.
Yes.
Who wears your pants?
Most of the time it's you. Yeah. It's either my conscience or you.
Am I your conscience?
Sometimes it's one and the same. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for finally having me. I've been trying to get on this podcast for fucking months now. And now that you finally had me, I'm so grateful to be here. So thank you.
Well, maybe we'll have you on for part 2.
Yes.
Who knows?
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Who Wears Your Pants. Please do me a favor and hit subscribe, leave me a review or a comment so that I can turn this disaster of a show into something great. I need you. No, seriously, I do. And if you're feeling really invigorated, check out my corner of the interweb at kirstentrammell.com or become my friend on the gram at Kirsten__Trammell. Because as a ginger, I need all the friends I can get. Peace and love, my homies. I will see you next time.